There's
It's
Kim
8
watches.
o'clock.
It's 8 o'clock. Let's do it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday Notary Titans call. My name is Bill Soroka. I'm the founder of NotaryCoach.com and the Sign and Thrive Notary Training Course and Community. I'm here with Carol Ray, founder of Notary2Pro. Hi, Carol. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine.
I'm glad you made it. Thank you so much for spending so much of your day with us. I know last week you had a lot of new students that were getting their first signing, so you were available
I
to
may
them.
have phone calls ringing this morning. Oh my God. I dedicated my whole day yesterday to just being on the phone.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds rough.
I love it though. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
love it. But I'm getting some weird questions. I should write them down. Things that have
Exactly.
happened. Oh my God.
Just what you need is more stories, right? I'd love to hear it. Let's do it. What are you excited about this week, Carol?
You know, I'm actually excited about something that, not something I'm doing. It is something I have a little bit of portion of interest in, but there's something new that's going to be launched in a week. And I can't tell anybody what it is. But it is going to, I think it's going to really impact this industry.
Awesome.
It's going to replace something that has been out there for many years that's kind of got people soured. That's all I'm going to say.
We love hearing that. There's so much, I mean, I say it all the time, but this industry is ripe for innovation, initiative, and people who really jump in and raise the bar, whether it's from a technology piece or a training piece or just a systems approach, whatever it is, this is the time to do it. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that.
They make an announcement and then I'm just going to be quiet.
Of course we can.
I don't talk about it enough. And people who in this country, there are so many people whose native language is Spanish. And I'm sure that a lot of people on here know about it, but maybe a lot of people don't. And I just want to point out that we have not only created, but completed now a Spanish course, which is Notary2Pro, but it's all in Spanish. Because I felt like, and I know, Bill, you're real excited about this for us too, but I've felt for a long time that people whose native language is Spanish would have so much easier time, even though they speak English, to learn in Spanish. And we're trying to get the word out on this because I think this is going to do a world of good for this industry because we have English speakers who speak Spanish, but it's not the same when they go into a Spanish-speaking home where there's very little English spoken. And so I just want to make everybody aware that there is now Notary2ProSpanish.com, and we're so excited about this because I think it's going to open up a whole new world to people who have been shut out for many reasons. So pass it on to any of your Spanish-speaking friends, Notary2Pro Spanish, and we'll be offering a nice, healthy discount to them. So,
yeah, I think this is going to be really positive. It's clearly an underserved community, and I love that you've taken the time and put in so much energy and resources into it. I posted the Notary2Pro Spanish in the chat window, and feel free to share that on all the social media as well too, and help it gain some traction because I think that's going to be invaluable. Laura, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Hi, how are you?
Good morning. Great.
Good morning.
It's a good day.
It is a great day. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. We're looking forward to your presentation today. What are you excited about today?
Well, it's countdown. Every day is an exciting day for me because we're getting closer to the Symposium that is coming October 5th and November 16th. And the Rancho Cordova one, which is Northern California, only has 35 seats left. So it's moving along. And Southern California has about 40 seats left. So we're moving along. It's going to be packed. I really do believe they'll be sold out before we ever get there. So if anybody's on the line and you've been thinking about it, just be sure you get your seat. So that's probably really the most exciting thing I've got going on, since every day I have to work on that.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Well, congratulations. I'm glad it's filling up so fast.
Thank you.
And then for me, guys, I'm on vacation here in Seaside, Oregon. It is the high of 68 degrees, and so it's not 112. This is heaven for me, and I've got an ocean view right here, so I'm just enjoying that, and that's what I'm excited about. And excited to be here and be able to have a job that allows me to travel and do what I love with what I love. So let's jump in. I think last week, Laura, we made up by giving you the presentation first. How do you feel about just doing some burning questions before we jump into the presentation? You okay with that?
Yes. When do you want to call that so that we don't go the whole hour and forget to jump back in?
No, we're not going to do that. Let's do.
Okay. Let's go ahead then.
8:30.
Okay.
How's that?
That's fine. Yeah, mine will go quick. 10 minutes.
Beautiful. All right, let's jump in. Anybody who's live on the call right now that has a burning question that you'd like to ask? Burning question for the TNT. Deborah asked, do you ever have a symposium on the East Coast?
Good morning, Bill. This is Peggy.
Good morning, Peggy. How are you? You got a burning question.
I do. It's not so much a question per se, but it's a generality. I've done a couple, I think they're called Vantage Point. They're some kind of thing that's not a loan, it's not a refi, but it's actually a purchase that some kind of lender makes on a home, and it's on the equity of the home. And some of the forms are really kind of odd. They're just buying the equity in the home, and I just wondered if you'd heard about that or what you could say about it.
Interesting. I don't think I've heard of that. I mean, I've heard of those in the business world, but I haven't seen those as a signing agent. Carol, you know something about those?
I've had a couple of my students, because they get a lot of work from Vantage Point, that have gotten that, and the documents are weird. The whole premise is kind of strange. But if you like, I can call and talk to the vendor manager over there and see if maybe I could get some samples of it and see what it's all about. It's the weirdest thing. They buy the equity in the home and then they hold it for a certain amount of time, and it's strange. So if, I'm going to make a note and I'll call her and see if I can find out about it.
Excellent. Great question. And just to be clear, it's not a home equity line of credit or anything like that. It's not a reverse mortgage. This is something completely different.
It's really different. And it just popped up, as a matter of fact, last week.
Huh.
One of my students, 2 of my students had something. Okay, I'm going to call her. I'm going to ask her about it.
Awesome. Thanks for bringing that up, Peggy.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Symposiums on the East Coast. Laura, she already has commented on that, so you guys can look forward to possibly some others. And also, guys, and I know Laura's big into this too, where if your community is lacking in a particular resource, this might be the perfect opportunity for you to organize and put it together. It's definitely not for everybody. Laura can speak to this. It's a huge undertaking at this scale, but still, you can start small.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. Let me just add that we didn't start at this scale. We started with meetups. That's where it started. So everything was free. And then we started adding, let's bring in somebody local. And then we started having not enough room. And then we started realizing, hey, I can't provide all the content. There must be other people who can share in that. And pretty soon our first symposium was about 45 people. So there you have it. If you want to do something in your own state, you can do something like a grand meetup instead of a small symposium. And if you want to know about how to go about that, I'm open. Just email me or call me, and I'm happy to share with you how you might do that.
Awesome. Love that. Anybody else have a burning question?
Good morning. This is Monique Aubrey. I have a question.
Hey, Monique, how are you? Welcome. Please.
I'm great. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so good morning. I did a HELOC, and I understand you're not supposed to do a blank notarization on the deed, or ever any blank notarization that doesn't point to any document. But they had two acknowledgments, to be notarized for the deed. It pointed to it at the bottom. It had barcodes on the bottom that said it was for the deed of trust and indicating the loan number or the page number and everything. Is it okay to notarize both of them, even though there are one set of papers for the deed, but two acknowledgments for it?
Was each acknowledgement for like one person for Mr., one person for Mrs., or vice versa?
No, it was just one person, and they both pointed towards the deed. It had a barcode on the bottom. The barcode had little letters up under it, and it said DOT, and it had other numbers for their loan. And I'm trying to remember if it had their initials on the bottom as well.
It's possible that this was pre-printed to accommodate for any additional signers. And it wasn't a jurat and an acknowledgement, which we do see sometimes.
No, it was definitely two acknowledgments.
I think I've seen that before, where I think that they're thinking that if there is an additional signer, that you would have be accommodated for that the certificate.
None of the other documents in there had two, though. It was just the deed of trust that had two acknowledgments.
Well, I think that was probably it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Laura, any feedback on that one?
Yeah, I probably would have reached out and contacted to find out what's this extra acknowledgement for? What's the purpose for this to be with the same document? So I could make a more informed decision about, is this just an extra? I'm not filling it out. I don't fill out extras because who knows what they're going to do with it. Or was there a specific purpose to go with that? So I would have wanted more information.
Well, I have seen that done before. And I think it's just to accommodate an additional signer that may not be there or may be coming at a different time. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a totally legit question to ask.
Yeah.
Title officer or the lender. Great question. Thanks for sharing, Monique.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Who else? All right, let's jump into the presentation because we've got some great questions in here. All right, here we go. All right, this is from Patricia. I sometimes see notaries offering forms such as a minor's permission to travel or a healthcare directive. Is it okay for us to do that, or would that be considered UPL, which is unauthorized practice of law? Patricia just happens to be in California. Laura, you want to start us off with that one?
Sure. Interesting that that's here because I just posted a similar question on my own Facebook page about whether notaries can provide an instruction sheet or actually a format to make it easier for the signer to handle these consent to travels. And the answer is, unless you work for the agency, so you have that information that's from an authorized place, or you're an attorney, for you to pre-select information for that client is unauthorized practice of law. And that's not just California. We are not in the position to predetermine what should go on a form, which form they should fill out, even though they are filling it out. We cannot be in the process of determining that. If something goes wrong and I left something out or I didn't give a good instruction, do you know what they're going to say? The notary said that. The notary gave this to me. The notary. And so then that's the path towards lawsuits. So I highly recommend you avoid that. Certainly you can direct them where they might find such direction or information. And I do that all the time. That's how I can be a resource for that. But I don't have it in my bag of tricks that I offer them.
So Laura, if I'm understanding you correctly, you would just refer them to either the website for the agency that's requiring it or a state agency or whatever it is. Google it.
They can Google there's lots of examples out there, and that's what's scary about it is there's at least a dozen different ways you can put one of these together. Some of it is country related. Just because you found one doesn't mean that's the one that's right for you. And I do know, just to take that a step further, that many notaries pull off a jurat with the affiant statement where they can write their consent at the top of it. The problem with doing that is that you've predetermined it's a jurat. And that's also the unauthorized practice of law, to predetermine what the right notarial act is as well. They need to tell us which one it is. And of course, we don't make the guarantees that anything we do with them is going to be accepted by the agency at the other end. I know that seems a little bit non-helpful. However, if they're in another country with this kid and that form isn't working, there's a bigger problem.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And I think, too, Laura, maybe you can speak to this a little bit, too. There's when it comes to general notary work especially, there is this a little bit of overwhelm, especially when you're a new notary, but even years into it, because virtually anybody can create a document that requires a level of notarization. So we feel this pressure to understand every single document. But maybe you can just speak to what the actual role of the notary is here to help relieve that tension.
So as a general notary, which means I'm going to come into every document under the sun, it's not my job to understand and recognize every single document presented to me. My role is always the same. My role is, let me see the document. Oh, I see this is an XYZ document. I see there's some initials required here. I see there's a signature required here. Oh, I see some notary wording. And then I have to determine, can I use it? Am I replacing it? Or there's none. And I'm going to ask them something like, do you know what they needed? Do I need to prove it's you, or do you need to swear it's true? Because that will help me differentiate that. The more experience I gain and I start to understand these documents, and I do that by Googling them myself, checking out the agencies, checking out samples. I do my own research. And there are many times, and I've been doing this 16 years, that I'm presented with a document I've never seen before. I don't know why they need it. And so instead of getting overwhelmed with that, instead I think, okay, what's my job here? All I have to worry about is doing my notary work. Do I have a complete document? Do I have what I need to identify them? And then the document, which is everything from the signature line, including the signature line, up, is their responsibility, not mine. Mine starts after the signature line. So how the name was printed versus how the name is signed, not my business. If it's not acceptable, that's their issue. You know, people say, hey, this is how I sign my name. It's good with me. The name I put in the certificate is always the printed name, how they're described in the document name. That's what I put in my certificate, no matter what that signature piece of art looks like.
I have a question.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tara, is this a question about what Laura's speaking to right now?
It is, yes.
Perfect.
So along those same lines, if they have a document, I know we're not supposed to notarize anything that has blanks in it, but what if there are a couple of blank spaces on the document? Do we just say you have to fill out all those spaces before we can notarize?
You know what, that's a great question, because it's not a yes and no answer. It might be as easy as you need to address the blank spaces. So that just happened to me this last Sunday. It was a timeshare deed, and there was 3 blanks in there. And it was referring actually to information earlier in the document. And I told the client, you need to fill out these blanks. And she said, I don't know what goes there. I don't know if anything even needs to go there. I said, well, you need to address it. I don't know how to address it. I don't know what goes there, but if you can put something there, I'm ready to go. And she said, well, what if I just drew lines in each one? That's fine with me, however you want to address it. And that's how she chose to do it. I think the hardest part is that some blanks do not make a document incomplete. And that's where notaries have issues. Is that, you know, at the bottom of a form, have you ever seen it say for office use only? Well, who cares if that's blank? That's not part of the signer's statement. And I want you to think about the document as the signer's statement. They filled stuff out, or they created a statement and they signed it, And that's what they're attesting to. This is what I agree to. My signature represents, I agree with that. So if there are blanks, like at the top for the recorder's office, we don't worry about that. That happens after us. If it's a multi-purpose form, DMV is a great example. In California, I don't know about all the DMVs, but they have a transfer purpose, and then they have a sale purpose, they have a release of lien purpose, and they're like in sections of the form. But they only need one section because that's what they're using the form for. And the notarization section, it's the part just above it. So I don't really care about all that other stuff. I am notarizing the signature for the guy that only had to fill out this much information. That is what I'm worried about. So when you're concerned about blank spaces, think about this. If it's within the signer's statement, they need to address it one way or another. Not my job to know what goes there. If it is additional signatures, if it is an additional part of the form that isn't part of their statement, it can be blank and I can notarize it.
Okay, thank you.
It's a little murky out there for sure on the general notary work. And
it is.
You really, sometimes you want to
be careful.
Yeah, right. Because you want to say apply common sense, but sometimes logic doesn't prevail in this industry either, so you can't really always use common sense either. It's an adventure for sure.
So that's why you want resources. What are your resources, guys? Hotline is a resource, a law primer, your handbook. I mean, there's lots of resources. Sometimes the handbook is not that helpful because it's in legalese. So you might want to have to talk to somebody, your coaches, people that see those documents, and they can help you with that.
Beautiful. Great question, Patricia. Thanks for sending it in. Now, Chris says, I was at UPS checking the prices for print and notary services. For their notary services, they charge per signature. Are we to charge per signature or per document? Or is this charge dependent on our state, what our state allows us to do? So great question, Chris. And yes, it does depend on your state. Your state actually usually gets pretty specific about this. Laura, any additional info on that?
No, you're exactly right. Every state says if there is a mandated fee, if there is, if it's per signature or if it's per document. Some states say the first signature is $6 and every signature after that, too bad. If it's on the same document, one certificate, it's per certificate. So you have to check your own state laws.
And then one thing I want to talk about UPS stores in particular. They will oftentimes, I've noticed that they tend to push the limits in whatever state they might be in. So you might see convenience fees and stuff like that. If nothing else, that's going to spark your wheels turning to figure out what your limitations are in there. So dig deep into your notary statutes on that and don't necessarily follow their example.
Hey, Bill.
Research. Hey, Lori, how are you?
How are you? I have a question in regards to the notary fees. I'm in Virginia, and it says basically $5 per act. Is per act, so say if I have two borrowers, is that one act because it's one stamp? Or is it two acts because I had to proof two people?
Great question. Great question. So typically it's going to be per stamp as the notarial act, but there's a difference there too sometimes, right, Laura?
Yeah, there is. There are some states that say it's the per act and not how many signers that were involved in it. So for me, since it's Virginia, I'm not as familiar. I can certainly investigate that for you more fully. And of course, if you call the hotline, if you're a member of the NNA, they can tell you very specifically if that means you can have multiple signers in one certificate and you still have to only charge one amount, or if it's per signature that's being notarized.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Clyde says, what are your thoughts about being the notary for the signature sheets of a petition?
Circulator?
Yeah, great question. I got a chance to do this for a few years not too long ago. Laura, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, here's the deal. I don't know about the other states, but I'll tell you about California. You have to do it for free because it's a voting material. So you can do the work, but in California, you may not charge for the notarizations you perform for a circulator's affidavit because it's considered a voting material and I have to perform those for free. I could charge for travel, but I cannot charge for the notarization. So I will do it if I'm asked, but I don't go out seeking it.
Right. And again, yeah, so you just have to be really aware of your state laws. I did this for a few organizations where I knew people who were leading them or leading a movement for something. So, and I was able to negotiate my fees. So, but it's definitely, it's a real deal, and it can be a real niche for people if you can charge for it.
Yeah,
that certainly helps. All right, what do we got here from Jerry? Question number 1. Actually, we're going to come back to that one because it's pretty wordy here. We're going to go right to Brigitte. Who sets the signing appointment? Title or the signing service? And why is it not a requirement to set the appointment only when documents are ready? Why is that? Carol, are you still on with us?
Yes, I am.
You want to take this one?
They just arbitrarily set up the appointment. Usually it's the signing service, occasionally the title company, but they set it up with the borrowers without even putting any thought into when the documents are going to be ready. We're all running into this. It's terrible. My constant advice to my students is that if you're working with a company that you know for a fact never gets the documents on time, that you prepare the signers for that in advance by letting them know there's a possibility I will not get my documents in time for me to properly prepare them and get to your home at that time. Are you available a little bit later? And I will let you know when I get the documents and if I'm going to be on time. And if not, I will absolutely let you know if I'm going to be a little late when I do get my documents so that we can rearrange another time. I don't understand why they do this, and it's becoming so prevalent now. This is so many of the calls I get, and it's so devastating to brand new notaries. It's their first signing. They've been wringing their hands all day long waiting for those documents, and they're waiting, and now it's an hour before the signing, and it's going to take them 45 minutes to get there. And they know that they don't have time to prepare. So that's the only thing I talk about is just communication with the borrowers and letting them know the possibilities and making sure that they're going to be available a little later. And there's not a thing we can do about it. You can beg, plead, go to the title company, go direct to the lender. It's not going to do you any good. So there's 2 things I wish I could start a movement. Number 1 is the uniformity of documents. This is crazy, these documents that we're getting. I had a first signing yesterday. She had 358 pages, and she couldn't figure out whether that was that she had to do it double or whether it was, two of the same package. And then the uniformity is one, and then of course having these documents ready. Why do they do this? It's beyond me. I have no answers.
It defies logic for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up proactive communication, because that's really what it is. A lot of the pressure that we feel is just because there's a set appointment and we want to stay in integrity with that. But people are pretty cool. And if you're proactive with them and you communicate, especially when you have a historical record of companies that run late, you can find out what you're working with. What do they have to pick up their kids at 8, so they have this window between 6 and 8 that you can get there? Can you juggle some other appointments around? The more information you have, the better for everybody. Laura, anything to add to that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me add one thing, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, because I forget. I'm 76. The brain isn't what it used to be. There's that, I've mentioned it before, and there's a couple of lenders that are notorious for this. And we need to start reporting these companies to the CFPB. I don't know if it's going to do any good, but they do have a hotline, and it's anonymous. It's called the Whistleblowers Line. I've given out the number before, and I think that it's time for us to rise up and start telling this entity that's supposed to be regulating everything what's happening, that there's certain lenders that are doing this consistently. Like every time when I know that this one company is giving, doing the docs for a signing, I prepare my students. I say, don't be surprised if you don't get your documents in time. But we need to do something. There has to be something that we can pull together and try to get a change.
Yeah. Love that. Laura, anything to add to that?
Well, I just want to say, one, I evaluate all of the vendors that I work with. And if this is a pattern and they're messing with my schedule and my ability to provide the customer service I want, then I'm not a good fit with them. And they need a different notary. So I don't know whether or not anything can happen to fix it. When I did my own, the title company is the one that said, I set the appointment. I can't set the appointment till the loan approval exactly was signed. And then I need so much time to pull all the documents together and review it. So it just seems that they have their process and there are a lot of hands in it. So I don't know how that can be fixed. But what I do know is that their problem isn't my problem and I'm not going to take it on.
I love that.
There you go.
That's personal power, baby. I love it. And, you know, right now, I have just escrow direct clients that I work with, and they have a policy. And I've got now the commercial client kind of trained on this as well. But they don't book us until they have documents in their possession. So we eliminate the waiting from the lender. So the title still has to do their thing, but they've got them.
Exactly.
Then they schedule us. So, but that's a luxury that you don't always get, especially when you're signing with signing companies. There's so many people.
And when you're new, you're new, I mean, don't forget, I work with thousands of newbies, and they don't have the ability or the opportunity to say, well, I've got plenty of business over here. I don't need you. We earn that. That takes us a long time to earn. And it takes a long time. And I know you're great at this, Bill, and you encourage people and teach them. And I think it's wonderful. That's why the three of us meld so well. Mm-hmm. But from my perspective, and I'm thinking of new people that are struggling, making those phone calls, working their butts off, trying to connect with companies. Now they start getting work. They're not about to tell somebody, well, you're not doing it my way, so bye-bye. Right. You will get there. That will happen. But I know for myself, even as a retired escrow manager, having done thousands of signings, when I first got started, the business was non-existent. Mm-hmm. And you call a company, and even then they would say, well, how many signings have you? Oh, well, when you've got 2,000 of them under your belt, call me. Right. And Laura, you've been through this, right? At the beginning. And
10 years before I got to this position, guys, 10 years before I started saying, I will choose. And I do want to clarify, when there's a problem, it doesn't mean I say you're cut out. It's a pattern of a problem.
Exactly.
It's consistently doing this over. You know what? The first time it happens, I understand. Let me work with you. Let me get with the client. Let me coordinate. Fabulous. The second time it happens, hey, you know, this can happen more than once. Once I get 3 or 4 times, now I'm saying, no, I don't have time to be chasing this stuff down. So I never encourage anybody on the first few times. I say cut them some slack. There's a lot of stuff going on. I got a lot of stuff going on. So I get it. But 1, it did take me 10 years to be in this position. And 2, I always give extra chances, just as we want to have extra chances.
Exactly. That's great. But I do want people out there to know that you don't want to do that. It's really cutting off your nose to spite your face. You want to be around for a while when you've got some clout and people know what you're made out of, and they start depending on you as the best signing agents to use. Mm-hmm. Now you got some, you know, whatever you want to call it, muscle.
Absolutely. All right, great. Let's move on to Dave's question. How do you convince your spouse? You know, I included this because I think there's a lot of people who read into this. How do you convince your spouse on letting you do this as a part-time first, then trying to make it full-time? My wife doesn't have faith in me. She will not even let me buy the printer for my job. So I've had a commission for a year now and not one single signing. I've had to turn down jobs, even in my own backyard, because of this. I guess I made the mistake of having my wife talk to a course teacher who said there's no money to do this time. Now, Carol, I know you're
wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
Definitely wasn't us. But you know, I think what this really highlights is the impact that naysayers can have on people who are coming into this for the first time. Because this, whether it's your wife, your partner, somebody in a forum, somebody in the industry, or somebody who used to do this, you're going to hear stuff like this about how you can't really do it. So Carol, I know you're big into inspiring your newbies. Can you share any insight on just how to get through the negative Nancys and the naysayers out there?
Well, I think it's important to surround yourself with people who have faith in you.
Right.
And if your spouse doesn't, I think you need to have not a change of spouse, but but you need to change the attitude. And perhaps what his answer might be is to regardless of how she is kind of a naysayer, I would definitely go out and start taking a few signings. Give her the checks. Let her spend it or take them to the bank. And I just think it's really important that you demonstrate, because I have seen so many of my students that want to go full-time, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you're not going to get there for a while. This is what you have to do. These are the steps you have to go through. And then they'll call me 6 months. They're full-time now. They're making enough money to make up for the income that they gave up, which is great. But I think that you've got to demonstrate. You can't just say, I'm going to be fine. You have to get out there and just let your wife know, in this particular instance, that you've got a couple of orders. You're going to go out and do them. Let's just see what happens, where I can take this and go from there. And hopefully when the money starts coming in, the attitude will change.
Absolutely, Laura. And I know this is something you're really good at as well, is overcoming these kind of challenges. What suggestions would you have?
Yeah, first of all, if I don't have a printer, I'll go to Kinko's and pay the money to print it and just suck it out of the fee that I get at first, to show that I can accept these and some money's coming in, and maybe those checks would convince the printer step. And then once I could get past the printer step, then I could go further. The other thing is, I would encourage them to look at what's going on in the forums, the supportive forums, where we can see people are getting jobs and moving forward. Have her talk to a different instructor who has a different experience. Let her see there's more than one opinion out there. So those are the 3 things I would do.
Yeah, love it. Love it. No matter what, guys, you're going to run into people who don't have the vision. They don't see where you're going. That's not your responsibility to make them see where you're going. Yeah. Your responsibility is to go where you want to go. You can't change the minds of everybody. You just got to move forward on it, and you got to find a way. There's going to be, if it's not your wife, it might be your car. It might be the price of fuel. It might be the price of paper. It might be last minute documents. There's always going to be some type of challenge or obstacle that gets in the way. And if you're just going to turn around at the first one, then there's no point in even starting this. You're going to be ready, put your armor on, because you're going to get hit from all directions in this or any business that you want to go to. You got to have that compelling why. Why are you in this business? Why are you taking this on in the first place? If it's just to take your toys and go home after the first time you get rejected, you're going to be disappointed throughout this and every other business you take on. This business can be everything that you want to. You got to understand why you're in it and what your ultimate goal is. Like every day I get up and I pinch myself because I get to do what I love every day. And I don't have to work in a call center. So that is worth it to me.
God, yes.
That's going to motivate me to do whatever I got to do to make this work. So get some clarity on that. And I think that's a really good first step. And then be the MacGyver too. Know your resources, because MacGyver can get out of any situation. It can make anything work. That's what this business needs, is that resilience and those resources to get you through things. All right, let's move into Laura's presentation, because I do not want to miss that. We're already 10 minutes past the time I told her. Laura, I'm turning the floor over to you. I'm excited to hear your presentation today.
Okay, so let's find the share, and let's find that. And let's just see. I just want to move this over out of the way. Let's see if I got it going. Did I get it? guys are seeing my slides.
We can see it.
It only takes a dozen times and I get to it. I'm a notary. I am not a tech person.
Support, right?
Okay, so I just wanted to throw out some advice about protecting your notary tools, particularly in the general area, but it happens to us in loan signings. I cannot tell you how many stories I see posted on the forums about going in to an environment that is so inappropriate for us because either our own health can't take it, it's just not sanitary, or it's just because, you know, they're just a little more relaxed and they've got jelly on the table and who knows what going on. Or when you're in the general side, going to hospitals and things like that. So here's when protection is a consideration for us. Absolutely. Any type of hospital, the hospital's acute care, those are your major facilities. Then you have long-term specialty hospitals, people who are in a hospital environment, long-term, like they're hooked up to respirators or machines so they can't be in a regular nursing facility, then nursing facilities. When you go to the home of an infirmed elderly who lives alone, you know, they're not able to keep their home the way they would want it. And when you go to somebody's home or office that just has an unsanitary environment, you need to start thinking about the bag you're bringing in there, and that's going to everybody else's place. So your tools are going house to house, to offices, to hospitals, in your car, in your home. You're handling environments that have pets, meaning hair, messes because there's children, and then other things. I mean, I've been in the home of hoarders and other kinds of environments. You may go to somebody who's contagious and they're sick, but they don't realize what they have is really a contagious illness, not just a cold, and they don't realize they're passing on germs. Your signer could be compromised. It could be the other way around. So they may be in a compromised state and you need to be protective of them. So they might have an autoimmune, that's it, autoimmune disease where they can easily pick things up. So I want to be careful when I'm going from one person's home to another person's home into hospitals all day long that I'm not tracking everything with me. I want to protect myself. Hospital rooms, you'll see sometimes require precautions due to medical illnesses, like MRSA. I had to do somebody that was in a hospital room and I had to gown up and I had to protect everything that I had because this was something that was highly contagious. But a lot of times that's not the issue. A lot of times they have you gown up because they're protecting the patient from you, not because they're going to give you something. So what are the kinds of tools I need to protect? If you're in California or any state that requires thumb printing, you've got a thumb printer, you've got your pens, and most of us use nicer pens that cost a little money. You've got your journal, if you're using one of those, and I hope everybody on this call uses a journal. You've got your certificates, you've got your bag itself, and you've got yourself. So let's talk about the thumb printer. I usually buy them at about 10 at a time. First of all, it's cheaper for me. And second of all, when one just starts, I see it's still working fine, but the ink isn't as good. I just put it away in a pocket of my bag and I save it. I save it for that appointment when I don't want to use my good thumb printer. And then I use it on that appointment and I toss it and I don't worry about it that way because there's just no way to sanitize the ink itself. And so sometimes I'll have 2 or 3 of those backed up because I'm not afraid. I don't have to get the very last thumbprint out of the thumb printer before I move it over. I do a lot of hospital work. So for me, it's an easy way, inexpensive way for me to handle that. Pens. So my expensive $2 to $3 per pen, I'm not going to have them use my pen. Either I've got some throwaway pens or I see there's a pen on their table and I ask them to use their own pen. Have sanitizer wipes. I have the little mini packages so I can wipe down anything that they touched of mine. The journal. So I just actually had a call on this on the hotline about, do I have to let them sign my journal? Well, if it's a requirement, the answer is yes. But one, there's a couple things you can do. The signer can wear gloves. So if they have to touch your journal, they've got sanitary gloves on their hands. And so you can keep a couple of those. If you're not in the hospital and it's at a home, just keep some of those in your own bag. I have them at home. You can wipe the cover down with the sanitizer wipe. Discard the unused entries on that page. So if they were signer number 1, guess what? Signers 2 through 7 aren't happening on that page. I put a big strike through it and I start next signers on the next page because that's paper. I don't want to get it wet with sanitizer wipes, but I don't have to use it. It's just one page in my journal. And then certificates. So I use my own clipboard that's a plastic that I can sanitize. I don't use the hospital, I don't set anything down on the hospital table, and that's true whether or not there's any concern about any diseases, because I don't know what's been on that table, and they usually have too much on the table anyways. They've got flowers, they've got breakfast, they got everything on there, so I just really don't mess with that. So I have a clipboard that I can wipe down completely. Keep certificate. I don't pull out my whole pad of certificates. I have extras in a sleeve, you know, like in a plastic sleeve that I pull one out and I put it on my clipboard, right, to utilize. So I don't have to unload all my tools in their office. I only unload those things that I need. Your notary bag, don't put it on the floor. Oh my gosh. I've been in homes where there's dead and live insects crawling on the place. I've been in hotels that are that way. I've been in hospitals where there wasn't anything live, but there was who knows what was on there. Hang it on the chair, put it on a built-in counter. Same thing, women, if you're bringing in a big old purse too, you might not want to do that. You might want to pull out of it what you need and put it into your notary bag and consolidate. I recently, not all of you know this, but I recently broke my rib. I fell helping my son move into that home, and I broke a rib. So I couldn't lift my notary bag. It was too heavy, and I couldn't even lift my purse. So for the last 4 weeks, I have a supplementary notary bag, another lockable bag, and I only put in like 5 or 6 certificates each that I needed. My clipboard, my journal, a thumb printer. I just consolidate everything. And then from my purse, I have a small thing that that weighed nothing. And I just put my license, the things that I needed for that appointment. And then I locked everything else in the hatch underneath other things so nobody could see anything was in there. So I try to take less when I have to go. And that's the same thing, when you go to a jail appointment, if you ever do that, you cannot bring in your purse. You cannot bring in your cell phone. You cannot bring in everything you've got. You're only allowed to bring in what you need for that one signing. A pen, a thumb printer, a journal, right? A certificate. It's just, and forget paper clips and that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that you learn this little trick so that you have less to have to worry about. I carry, and I see a lot of notaries do this, they carry a little bottle of hand sanitizer for yourself. And when I see the signs, I always gown up. Remember, I'm trying in that case to protect the signer when I'm in a hospital setting, the mask, the gown, the gloves. If I'm having to put on gloves, guess what? I'm going to have them put on gloves. I carry gloves in my bag, so if I go to somebody's home and they're ill, right, and that happens a lot, I'm going to pull out the gloves if they don't have them. So I think, though that's just a quick rundown of, and that's not everything. I bet there's other people on this call who protect their tools already and might have other great ideas, and I wanted an opportunity for other people to share what they do.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. I love your perspective too, because sometimes we're oftentimes thinking about what we might be getting from that environment or that person, but we don't think about what we could be doing to them and their environment. So it's equally important that we are aware that if there's somebody's vulnerable or in a weakened state, that we are not the ones that get them sick or sicker.
Laura, I have to admit to the whole world, I never even thought about doing any of those things. But I've done very little, in the general notary stuff, but it never crossed my mind to protect myself. So thank you.
We have a great question about the shoe situation. Being asked to take our shoes off. Any feedback or advice on that, Laura?
You know, I do get asked to have when I do general appointments, but it's even happened on loan signings where I go to their home and I see all the shoes are at the door. And when I see that, that's a clue to me that I need to take off my shoes. And yes, I do take off my shoes and then go into the appointment. Usually people who have their shoes at the door, they have the cleanest floors I've ever seen. So it's not inconsistent. They're trying to keep their carpets clean, their floor clean. They don't want you traipsing in with stuff in there. And so they want that. My husband, who's a contractor, has those little blue booty things that you put over your shoes. So you could do that as well. They're disposable like everything else. So, you know, just carry a pair in your car just in case.
Yeah. My husband wears boots, big, heavy, lace-up boots. And we'd walk to a house and see the shoes are outside. He was ready to turn around.
Yeah.
Because he'd have to sit there every time, take off his boots. But they say terrible things come in with people with their shoes on into your house.
Yeah, I mean, think what you walk in all day long.
All day long, right? And then
you walk into somebody's home.
Exactly. And some of it is not only just the cleanliness factor, but there's cultural.
Exactly.
For doing that too. So we've got to stay sensitive to that. Sometimes you don't see the shoes, but they're inside or they've got a compartment or a mudroom or something. So I usually ask. And when it means something to them, they'll let you know to take them off. The important thing is learn to match your socks. You know, I wear colorful socks. So sometimes with a little whack, it's part of my personality, but I've learned that I got to better make sure I have socks.
No flip-flops?
Yeah.
I'm working on that. I think in Hawaii it's acceptable, so I'm gradually making my way over there. Hey, we've got a couple of hands up, so I just want to make sure that we get these questions. Carrie, I know this is your hand up. Do you have a question for us?
Oh, muted.
Yeah, I got it. You can hear me now?
Yep, there you are.
Okay. I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say really quick with I had my husband with me yesterday. It was with that question about the spouse not letting the other spouse work.
Yeah.
I had like 3 last-minute closings yesterday, and I did them all, but every single one of them was late. But that's another story. But one of them, it was a Connecticut closing, and they needed a second witness to the deed, and the borrower didn't have anybody. And he asked me, and I says, oh my gosh, I don't have anybody, but it was late in the evening. So, you know, I says, well, I guess I could bring my husband. He's done it before. And I says, if you don't mind. He's like, oh no, that's fine. So I let title know. They gave me an extra $50, which was nice. So I told my husband, you get an extra $50. Ha ha, I'm keeping it. And then so we went, and it was really smooth. And then afterwards, it was a Quicken loan. So it was pretty fast. When we get into the car, I asked my husband, I said, so, and because he stood there for the whole closing, and I asked the borrower, so do you mind if he stays here, or should I have him go wait in the car? He's like, no, it's fine. He's not going to rob me. He's fine. You know, like rob his, you know, information or whatever. But then we get in the car, and I asked my husband, so what do you think? You know, am I professional enough? What do you think of me doing this type of job? In 13 years, I've never asked him, you know. That I've been doing this. He's like, well, no, it was pretty good. You did really well. And I says, you know, I'm Chicago accent. So how was my accent? Was it okay? You know, I'm asking him all the, you know, 3rd degree. It's like, no, you did very well. He's like, very nice, very professional. And then he asked me, you know, then I asked him, I says, well, do you think it's still viable for me to continue to do this work? He goes, if you're getting paid $150 a closing, keep doing it, you know, because that's what I've been doing, and I'm only accepting certain closings from certain companies. So that feedback from him was super wonderful. It was really great. It made my whole night, and it was a shitty night. We didn't get home till like 10:30. Every single closing of mine was like an hour and a half back. It was a horrible night, but in the end, it was really nice that my husband, you know, was able to see exactly what I do and why I do it, and then I love to do it. So if that guy is here who had that question, you know what? Go and get that printer. Go and do it. Make that money. Give your wife the first $1,000 check that you make, and then ask her. You know, is this worth it? I mean, I think it is. So you shouldn't let anybody discourage you, not even your spouse. Sometimes you just got to do things behind their back But I just wanted to share that story. That's all.
No, I'm so glad that you did, because, you know, to be honored and appreciated for what you love and following your heart. I mean, I'm sure this wasn't an easy road for you either, Carrie. You've been through ups and downs through this whole process, and to see it come out and see the joy that you get from it, and then know that he's there supporting you means a lot. I mean, that's, in some ways, that's all we all want, is just to be appreciated and to pursue happiness.
We have a lot of husbands and wives. We give a discount of 2 for 1 for husbands and wives because of the wonderful, wonderful years that Bill and I spent doing every signing together in Arizona for 7 years.
Yeah.
And we loved it. We had so much fun. And when Notary2Pro started getting busy, he took over. I could no longer do signings. You can't be in the signing and get student calls all the time. So it just depends on the couple. But
I had asked him if he wanted to ever do this or real estate investing, you know, do the flip or flop thing. And at one point he did say yes. And then when I, you know, plopped down this big ass book and told him, okay, we've got to read this together. Yeah. He's like, oh no, you know, he's a building engineer for a hospital. So he's the chief engineer there. So he's got enough responsibility on his hands now. He's been doing that for like, well, as long as I've been doing this. So maybe in the future if he retires, he said he'd do it, but not right now. But thanks. That's good knowledge to know, Carol. Thank you.
Bill, there's something from Walter Hertz that I would love to address or have addressed. Because this is an issue that comes up all the time. Can
you read the question out loud, please?
Yeah, it says, from Walter Hertz to everyone, just because a printer is advertised as a dual tray printer, it does not mean the printer will do an auto switch. You should call the company tech support. Got to go down here a little bit. Tech support to find out. Example, I have an HP OfficeJet Pro 8740 that I use for other work. It is advertised as a dual tray, but the printer software is not set up internally to do auto switch. Just check before you spend your bucks. And I'm telling you, this comes up all the time because I'm dealing with people that are buying their first printer. We tell them dual tray. There's a big difference between a 2-tray printer and a dual tray printer. And these salesmen do not know the difference between, and they'll sell you supposedly a dual tray. So just so everybody out there will know, if everybody doesn't, a dual tray means that it will discern the difference per PDF size paper, whether it's going to print that document on legal paper or letter size paper. And that's everything. If you get what's just a two-tray printer and it doesn't have that capability, you're going to be in big trouble. So do it when you purchase it. Go to the manager of the store. Do whatever you have to do. Go to the tech support. Have them call and confirm to you that, yes, indeed, this is a dual tray printer with the ability to do the auto switch.
Yes, and you're in forums, you're on calls like this to get advice, and we give the amazing advice. Just go and buy that printer. The brother, and I know Carol is a huge fan of HP, so she's got her HP favorite. I've got my brother favorites, the HL 5200 or the 6200. You can buy it for less than $300, and it has the dual tray, and it does all that. Now, the communication between Adobe, Brother, and your computer might vary and change and all that. I'm not tech support, so I'm not very good at it either. I just as soon buy a new printer than go through all that. But there's great resources for you on the forums on which printers to actually buy and get. And you can buy them used. You can find all kinds of good deals on them. Now,
make sure they have metal parts.
Yeah, HP has metal parts, so they last forever. Tara has her hand up. I'm going to switch to Tara, and then we're going to close out here. Tara, one more question?
Yes. Yeah, it was back to what Laura was saying about bringing in and maybe using things to make your environment more sanitary. How do you bridge that with a client? Like, what if they don't think their place is gross?
Great question. Laura, you want to unmute and chime in on that?
Okay. So if there's a disparity in what I think I need And the environment, I've been provided. I have sometimes offered to buy them a cup of coffee and leave the environment. If it's such that I can't work in it, if I can just sanitize my stuff when I'm gone, that's fine. I'll live with it and I'll go clean everything later. But if it's like it triggers my asthma or I have other issues, I just put it on me. It's not you, it's me. You know, I'm having difficulty today. It's, you know, my allergies are a problem. Would you mind if we went to Denny's and conducted it there? I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had to do that as well. You know, when there's 8 kids and they've all spilled their syrup from breakfast on the table, and you cannot even scrub the table down, and the paper's still sticky, you can just offer to move the appointment. That'll come in handy a lot. Then Melissa, I saw you snuck your hand up. You have one more question for us? Welcome, Melissa.
Hey guys, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Kara Ray. I want to pay homage for you guys. I really do appreciate this forum. One of the things I used to do child protection investigation, and we used to go into a lot of homes that was infested with bugs, roaches, rats, and all of that. And what I used to train my workers was just what Laura said. Take the responsibility. Don't make it about them. Make it more about yourself. Apologize. Offer that respect towards their home, because a lot of times they don't know that their home is an issue towards you. And sometimes, you know, you tough it out if you can, but always, you know, offer the apology to them and just explain to them about the allergies or what it is that could be affecting the actual job.
Awesome. Very good. And I'm sorry, guys, I missed one more. Victoria, you had your hand up this whole time, and I skipped right over you. Sorry about that.
Hi, thank you. I know it had to do with what we were talking about earlier. I don't know if Laura is still on the line.
Yeah.
Because, are you still there, Laura?
I'm here.
Okay. Send something. I sent something to you because I'm thinking, okay, maybe we can do this on another call. I had a situation that I thought would be something to share with everyone, because I wouldn't have mind knowing this. The one I told you about where I had the power of attorney. I went to the house, found out that they thought I was going to bring the document. Lesson learned. Ask questions, more questions before you go. What happened is I volunteered to go back home and print it out. This person, I actually know them. They wanted to get a durable power of attorney for their 95-year-old mother. When I walked in there, I was going to proceed to ask her questions about, you know, do you understand what you're signing? But that person, her daughter, right in and said, Mom, this is Victoria. She's here to blah, 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 blah. It became pretty clear right away that she's 95 years old. She's very hard of hearing. I really don't understand. I don't think she knows what's going on here. I know this person, so maybe that could be an issue. She's a friend of mine. I believe she wouldn't harm her mother or take advantage of her, but I know I need to dismiss that out of my brain. When I read about when you go into a situation and you don't feel comfortable, usually the article ends, then you need to leave. And I'm thinking, you've got to do more than just leave. I feel like I need to offer them some other kind of advice. Mm-hmm. And so, Laura, my question to you is, because I did call, but I'd be curious to know how you would have handled that. Because I learned later on that maybe you are at a point now that you need to probably look for a conservatorship. We're past durable power of attorney because your mother is not. She doesn't know what's going on here.
So real quick, a couple of things. One is, even if the family member presents what the situation is, I'm there to notarize. I always directly confirm for myself. Second, I'm not afraid to use my own personal knowledge. If I happen to know them and I know they really don't know what's going on, then what I'm going to be doing is be prepared to offer what other resources are available. It may be conservatorship. There may be other legal options. And since I'm not an attorney, I don't know what they may be, but I have attorney friends, and I have them particularly in elder law. And I happen to be on the board of the Senior Advocacy Project. So I have a lot of connections that I could connect her with somebody who could say, all right, can't handle the power of attorney, but here's what your other options are. And then I feel like I can go.
So how would you exactly tell that person that? You know, well, This is what,
What would I say?
Yeah, what would you say to the daughter in that situation?
I would let the daughter know, you know what, I in my opinion as a notary, I don't believe she's a candidate for notarization at this time. Here are some recommendations I can make for you.
Okay.
And then I would offer the contacts.
Good.
I think that's one of the hardest situations that we run into, especially when we know people.
Yeah.
We know that we just can't proceed in having that conversation. It's really difficult. It's uncomfortable, but it's still important.
Thank you.
To have that. Great question, guys. We are 5 minutes past due, so I won't keep you anymore. Carol, you still with us?
I am.
Awesome.
I was just thinking about this last conversation, and I brought up something that happened to me once before, and it's, you just never know what's behind things. Friends, church people, you just never know, and you have to go with your gut. You have to do due diligence, and if you can't do it, you can't do it. So don't ever think you owe them anything.
Love that. Love that. Carol, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Laura, once again, wonderful presentation. Thank you for all of your time and energy that went into that. And for those who are watching, thank you for taking time out of your day to grow yourself and your business. We always love hanging out with you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.